This is my brutally honest review of the ASUS ProArt PZ13. I've just finished finalizing my benchmark. Specifically, I just finished Premiere Pro. I've got everything loaded into the charts. And I must say that I expected more out of this device. Now, I am filming this review in the fall of 2024. And as we sit, we do not have a lot of native ARM Windows applications. So Adobe Creative Cloud has yet to develop the fully native software, and therefore the performance is not going to be as anticipated. And so I will re-review this laptop as we obtain dedicated ARM-based applications for Snapdragon chipsets. If you need to be caught up very quickly on what I'm talking about, up until this point, AMD and Intel have run off of x86. It's just a type of processor. And now we have these ARM-based processors from Qualcomm Snapdragon, which is very similar to the Mac processors, the M1, the M2, the M3, and soon to come the M4 processor. And so basically it's a brand new architecture, and therefore the applications that have been previously available for the x86 platform are not available for the ARM platform because they have to re-engineer them. That is, the application providers like Adobe or DaVinci Resolve or whatever for the devices to run. Right now, they're running through an emulation. So basically the x86 application starts, it runs through an emulation, and then therefore it can play on the ARM-based device. Okay, so that's what's going on. Now, who is this device for? Because this device was made for somebody very specific. This device is great for somebody doing productivity, like a student getting into digital art or photo editing or some graphic design work. This is not for a full-time creative professional needing a workhorse device. It is quite a bit underpowered at this time, and I will show you that later in the benchmarks. Now, is this device wildly efficient? Yes. Does this device have excellent battery life? Absolutely. Is this device thin, light, and insanely functional? You better believe it. However, it lacks the performance it needs to get the stamp of approval to be a creative professional device. Now, let's go ahead and dive into the build quality, the features, the usability, and then we will talk about the performance and see if this device could be right for you, because it very well might be. Now, first and foremost, you can see that it's been sitting on the stand here. Now, this stand is removable. It has a very nice matte finish to this material. It pops off very easily where your pen is held. You can see the camera can stick through right there. And the vent that's along the back side of the device has a little hole there. So the air is sucked in from the back and then pushed out through the top. Really nice design. Now that fan does kick on a little bit. I'll talk about that in a second. But it has a little metal integrated piece inside, and this stand works very well to hold the device up. Now this is the keyboard. The keyboard comes down. It's also the screen protector. Pops on and off very easily and has the pin connection there on the bottom. Really nice. However, one of the issues that I run into is that if you're sitting this on your lap and it bends, it clicks the trackpad. So if you're sitting on your lap and you're working and you rest your palms, the trackpad begins to click. A little bit of an issue for some people who use this device on their lap on the regular. Now, another thing to consider is if you are somebody who's sitting down often and wants to use it on your lap, it's a little unstable, getting it just right. It kind of bounces around a little bit because you can see that this is very flexy. It's kind of flexing back and forth there. And so when it's sitting on your lap, it's a little bit hard to stabilize. Also, if you want to hold this like a laptop and like show somebody in your office something, be like, hey, check out this project that I'm working. It's just take this off, walk over to them, be like, hey, yo, check this out. So when it actually has the keyboard attached, it becomes a little bit finicky in the use of the device. But these are the negatives of the device, just kind of getting you, again, the raw review on this device because I think it is really great. And I don't want to be considered a fanboy of these new ProArt laptops because they were built for creative professionals. I want to give you a raw, honest review of this device. Now, I mentioned the fan. This was promised to provide us with 0 decibels of fan noise. It's in their marketing material, 0 decibels of fan noise for this device. However, when you use it like a creative professional, you will definitely hear fan noise. In fact, when I was doing the 4K export, I placed a 9-minute clip into Premiere Pro, exported out at full quality 4K settings. I had 48 decibels of fan noise and 75 to 85 degrees Celsius on this CPU or the chipset, the Snapdragon X Plus chipset. And so this device does get hot and the fan does get loud. However, it is pushing the air away from the screen, which I think was a fantastic design choice. I think it would have been a real boo-boo if they had the air going down or even out the side. Out the top really clears it away from the device. It was a really good design choice. If you're curious about the exact pricing and availability of the PZ13, sometimes I've seen it on sale, so you can head down in the description below, click those links. If you do make a purchase, I'll get a small commission, but at no extra cost to you. But of course, that's what keeps this channel alive and the helpful content coming your way. Let's talk about the ports on this device. So you can see on the left side, we have a USB Type A. Now the pen is a little bit in the way. It's not like completely covering the ports, but it's like a little bit in the way. So you can go ahead, reach in here, pull this up. You have a full-size SD card slot, another USB Type-C, and then a USB Type-C here. So it's just mildly kind of like aligned with the ports, this pen on the side. Now this side, we have our volume button. Now one thing that is missing, which is really frustrating in my opinion, is a headphone jack. It would not have been a big deal to add a headphone jack to this device. I mean, it just kind of seems silly that they wouldn't have it, especially if this is a creator device. We want, high quality audio. And so we usually have a nice pair of headphones with us. And I don't like Bluetooth headphones. I just don't like them. I don't prefer them. So I like to have regular wired headphones that I use on a day-to-day. And that's just a little bit annoying in my opinion. So I'd have to get a dongle to get my headphones in through USB Type-C, I guess. And that's just like another piece of gear I have to carry along with me. Now, since you can see on the outside here, we have speakers on each side. Here's an audio sample of the speakers so you can hear what they sound like in use. All right, now let's go ahead and open the device and let's check out this keyboard. I talked about the keyboard earlier, being that it clicks when you push down when it's sitting on your lap, but otherwise, I kid you not, this is my favorite keyboard right now. I love how it's so low profile, sits right on the desk. It is so easy to type on. I mean, whenever I'm typing on this device, it is such a joy. Perfect separation of the keys, really nice snapback for the keys, nice like short key travel. It doesn't feel like it's this little thin keyboard. It feels like a nice full-size keyboard. It's just so comfortable to type on. The trackpad, very well secured to this keyboard cover, as it were. It's no rattle, I mean, no fuss. It is absolutely awesome. It's probably one of my favorite parts of this device. It's what's led me to want to use the device more and more on my day-to-day. And I think that's what takes me into this device being absolutely one of the best device for somebody looking for a laptop for productivity, for school, for business, for streaming video, but then wants a super color accurate display and wants the ability to use a pen. This is ASUS 2.0 pen. It does not come with the device, but it works very well with the device. I'll give you a little tour of the pen here in just a few minutes. But it's for somebody who wants like really great battery life. I mean, we're getting 18 hours of battery life. And that's on like pretty much, as you can see from different reviews, that's pretty much the average. So some people are seeing more, some people are seeing less. But around 18 hours of battery life without question. Streaming video, you're going to be doing productivity. Now, if you're using this for, say, Photoshop, it drops pretty dramatically to about 8 hours. And then for Premiere Pro, almost 6 hours. It's just below 6 hours. And so the battery life is really good. However, the performance, while on that battery life, is not great. And again, we're going to get to the performance in just a few minutes. Now let's talk about the display. Fantastic display. It's a 3K display, 60 hertz refresh rate. That's 2880 by 1800 resolution at 354 nits of screen brightness with 100% sRGB, 97% Adobe RGB, and 98% DCI-P3 at a delta E of 0.84. So it's got good gamut range and excellent accuracy of that range. Now, it is a super thin device. It is light. Now, with all of the covers and everything on, it's going to be 3.32 pounds at a thickness of 0.74 inches. Now, if you literally just take everything off this device and you just have the device, you're going to have a device that is 0.35 inches thick. That's 9 millimeters. And it weighs 1.87 pounds. That's 0.84 kilograms. So it is so thin, so light, really, really on-the-go friendly device. And a lot of people are saying this is like the, Surface Pro, competitor. And I've never actually reviewed a Surface Pro. Microsoft, hit me up. I'd love to review one. And so this is definitely like that fit. It's not necessarily a tablet because it is a Snapdragon device with a Windows OS, and it has this fantastic included keyboard, which again, I absolutely love. And so it definitely fits more of the laptop vibe, but it's very, very portable. Now, some things that I noticed that I really like about the little details is they've kind of like done some nuances that they didn't really have to. So you can see here along the top bezel, there's this little notching that takes place. It's just a little extra design detail that looks very nice. That's one thing I've really appreciated about ASUS over the past couple of years is they take their design really to the next level. And it's really, really cool. And so I just really appreciate that about them. Little notches. They just take the extra step for those nice little details that make a laptop tablet thing that's $1,100-ish, and it makes it worth that money. There's a lot of brands, I'm not gonna name names, that they stick a price on a laptop and I'm like, how did you arrive at that price? This quality does not earn that price. I would say ASUS earns the price that they put on their laptops. The quality, the craftsmanship. ASUS, like all brands, has had their fair share of legal situations and customer service quarrels. But overall, I think they're doing their best to create great products. And, don't peg me as a ASUS fanboy because on my channel that I absolutely love Lenovo stuff as well. And I absolutely love ASUS stuff. And I'm starting to get more acquainted with Dell devices, which I really love as well. And so I'm going to celebrate the laptop that has great build quality, has great performance, and looks awesome. Now, one thing I really wish they would have done is given this device an option of 32 gigs of RAM. That is one of the issues I see with this device is it is stuck at 16 gigs of RAM. There is no option to go higher. And at this day and age for creative professionals, you gotta be at 32 gigs of RAM, especially with multitasking, with how robust the programs have become with all these new AI tools. 16 gigs of RAM just is not, for me, the recommended. It's more of the bare minimum, and it's not recommended for creative pros. Okay, now, as promised, here is a walkthrough of me using the pen on the ASUS ProArt PZ13. Okay, so looking at the pen functionality, we have the ASUS 2.0 pen. Now, this is MPP Technology, the Microsoft Pen Protocol. And as you can see, the strokes, you can get some differentiation in the sensitivity pretty well, depending on how hard I press. However, the end of a stroke always ends with a rounded edge. This is not as sensitive as something with AES technology. That's the same technology in the Wacom tablets, something found in like the Dell Inspiron 14 2-in-1 laptop. And so that would be the one downside with the pen. It does have good sensitivity. You can do light strokes, you can do heavy strokes, but the end of the line to make that really natural pen look is not as prominent. It does not have as good of sensitivity because of it being an MPP pen rather than AES pens. That would be my one big complaint with this setup, the pen to screen. If this is a device made for digital artists, I think that choosing that technology would have been a better move on behalf of ASUS. So it's something to consider. Now, if I go ahead, pop this off, slide the keyboard out of the way, it is a very nice hold. It's easy to hold the device. Very nice. It's a light device, like I said, without any of the cases. It's about 1.87 pounds. So really, really nice lightweight device. I just wish that pen would trail off in a more natural appearance. And if I get it at a bit of an angle, so I start kind of on top of it and then angle it out, you can see it can trail away pretty good. But overall, it's just not as sensitive as something with AES, that same technology that Wacom has. Now, during the initial 1 week later, I had somebody ask me about hooking up an external monitor to this device. Now, I have an ASUS ZenScreen. This is simply powered by USB-C. I'm gonna go ahead and plug this in real quick and let's see how it handles this type of external display. So just went ahead, plugged it in, move the camera over a tiny bit here. And there you go. So quickly links up. This is obviously a duplicate screen. But if I go ahead to display settings, and we can make this a secondary monitor, extend, keep changes. Here's 2. Let's put it over here. And then apply. Now you can see there's our secondary monitor. So really easy to connect. No glitchiness between these two displays. So the secondary display, very nice. This is, like I said, the ASUS ZenScreen. I love this screen. It's a 1080p display, so it's not super high quality, but it's so easy, so user-friendly on the go. You can go ahead, unplug it. This little stand duplicates as a screen cover, which I really like. Very simple to use, pops right on there. And you actually have a nice thin aluminum back, and it has a mount if you were to want to mount this anywhere. So a really great display. There it is, there, popped it on there. And I like it a lot. So really nice consolidated package for these two items. Okay, a question that I had during the 1 week later is, how would this device work for 3D modeling? This would not be a 3D modeling device that I would choose. It lacks a dedicated GPU. It lacks 32 gigs of RAM. If it lacked the dedicated GPU and had 32 gigs of RAM, I'd say, yeah, sure. Like, you could definitely get away with it, because that Snapdragon processor is fast. And once we get applications that are ARM-based, I think it would have been a really snappy device. However, we don't have, I don't know if there's any ARM-based 3D modeling programs at this moment. If I'm wrong about that, comment below. But as a couple days ago when I did my research, this video will probably post about a week or two later, there was none. So maybe in that 2 weeks or a week it came out. But there's no apps that are dedicated for ARM-based devices, and therefore the performance is going to lag, and the performance is at no dedicated GPU and 16 gigs of RAM. So for me, this would not be the choice. I would go for the PX13, which is 32 gigs of RAM. You can get up to an RTX 4060 in the US, and it has a Ryzen 9 AI 370 HX CPU. So it's got plenty of performance. It's a 2-in-1 device. It's got a touch screen with pen compatibility. So really everything you need for that 3D modeling with the small form factors. That would be my recommendation between these devices. As I keep mentioning, this is a great device for productivity, for a student, for a business owner who finds themselves dabbling in creative work, whether an artist, photographer, and they don't need creative professional performance. On top of that, again, the app availability. So right now we do have availability of Premiere Pro. We do have availability of Photoshop, Lightroom Classic, but we do not have a full Illustrator application. We do not have a full InDesign application. There is an Illustrator beta, but at the recording of this video, again, we're lacking the applications. However, the device always has to come out before the applications come out, because no brand is going to be like, sure, I'll build an application for a computer that's yet to ever come out. So the computer launches, then applications are built, much like we saw at the onset of the Apple M1 series. They built the devices, they ran through emulations, and then over time, native applications came, and then their performance just skyrocketed. So will this performance skyrocket? I think it will. This device will be a worthy competitor in a year or so, especially if they come out with a new iteration at 32 gigs of RAM. ASUS, please do 32 gigs of RAM. And at that point, we'll see much, much better performance. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the performance benchmarks. And I'm gonna walk you through where this laptop stands right now. For these specifications, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus. That's the X1P42100. It has 8 cores. And the GPU is integrated graphics. It's the Qualcomm Adreno integrated graphics and 16 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. The storage is not upgradable. The RAM is not upgradable. Now, looking at the performance, you can see that inside of the simulated benchmarks, it doesn't look great. I mean, the multi-core performance on Cinema 2024 is only 528. However, Photoshop, being that it's running through an emulation, being that it's 16 gigs of RAM, still is scoring a 5,478. That was the highest score I was able to get on the Photoshop benchmark. I did end up seeing like a score around the 5,000s. I saw a score of 5,239. So it's about 5,000 to 5,400 on average. I ran the benchmark like 15 times. Now, with that in mind, once we get a full ARM-based Photoshop from Adobe, I can anticipate that being the high 6,000s. So that's really looking like more towards the creative professional opportunity. However, it's still 16 gigs of RAM. So multitasking, really, really big bloated Photoshop files with tons of layers would still see a little bit of lagginess because Photoshop loves RAM and we're limited at the 16 gigs. Now, where I really have beef with this device is going to be video editing, okay? That's where I'm like, this just wouldn't be a device I would choose for video editing. It gets good battery life. However, to export a 1080p clip, so we take a 1080p clip, put it into Premiere Pro, export out at full quality 1080p settings, takes 6 minutes and 29 seconds. Your average thin and light device should do that in about a minute 30, a minute 45 tops. Your dedicated GPU-oriented device, 30 to 50 seconds. So this is very slow in the export time. Again, it is not an ARM-based Premiere Pro. It is a x86 application, Premiere Pro, through an emulation, then through the ARM chipset. So that's what we're seeing. Now, 4K. And I didn't say 6K. 4K export time, 23 minutes and 37 seconds. That's a 9-minute 4K clip placed in Premiere Pro, exported out at full quality 4K settings, 23 minutes and 37 seconds. For most like thin and light laptops, let's say like the most like thin and light laptops, so like the ZenBook, it should do that in about 4 to 6 minutes, not 23 minutes. Okay, now let's talk about playback. We saw 0 drop frames only at 1080p half quality. We saw 5,000 drop frames at 4K full quality. Now, again, a thin and light Intel or AMD device should be able to do about 400 to 700 drop frames at full quality. That was at 4K half quality, and even 1080p full quality was 200 drop frames. So again, this is just not optimized for creative professionals at this moment. Again, fall 2024. I will do my 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, 1 year later reviews of this device as updates come out. And I see that, okay, we're catching up, we're getting more performance, it's moving along. Here are my thoughts now. But as it stands at the moment, this is a fantastic device for somebody who's looking to do productivity, business, school, and dabbles as an artist, as a photographer, as a designer. That would be kind of the spot for this device. Again, like I said, this would be a very honest review. I wanted to praise it more for its performance. I think it is a wonderful device for the build quality, usability, functionality, thoughtfulness from ASUS. They absolutely knocked it out of the park with this cover, the keyboard, the pen, the display. The chassis is beautiful, well done. It's just ahead of its time at the moment. And that is something that we knew would happen as, tech enthusiasts. When you launch on a new platform, Qualcomm Snapdragon, and the applications are not available, the performance will suffer, and therefore you'll get a what appears to be somewhat of a sour review, but it's not. It's just the time that you went ahead and you said, I'm taking a bet that Qualcomm will be, that ARM will be the device of the future. And they took the right bet. I believe it will be the device of the future because they're more efficient and they will be more powerful. They're a better architecture. However, we're just a little bit before the applications are available. And so if you buy this device, you're an early adopter and you will benefit from performance increases in the days to come. Remember, links in the description if you're ready to make a purchase. Again, if you want to be an early adopter and you think that the device really does have everything I need, I'll just wait for that extra boost in performance, then it could be a great fit for you. Otherwise, click or tap the screen for more videos to help with your buying decision, and I'll see you here in the next one.